Racist judge insulted a black man in court. 7 minutes later, he put her in jail. In a courtroom heavy with silence, a man stood at the defendant's table, calm yet tense. The judge, robed in black, leaned forward with narrowed eyes and a smirk that made the air heavier. Her words cut like knives, belittling him, mocking his presence, and turning the solemn courtroom into her stage of humiliation. The spectators chuckled, feeding on her cruelty. What no one realized was that the man she ridiculed wasn't who he appeared to be. In just a few minutes, the roles would reverse, and the gavel she wielded like a weapon of power would be drowned out by the sound of her own arrest. Before we continue this story, go ahead and subscribe to our channel and like this video so we can bring you even more amazing stories like this one. The man's name was Marcus Hayes, a decorated federal investigator who had walked into the courthouse not to defend himself, but to observe proceedings in disguise. He had been assigned to a corruption case involving multiple judges suspected of bias, bribery, and misconduct. One of those judges was sitting before him now, Judge Caroline Mercer, known for her sharp tongue, iron fist, and controversial rulings. Marcus had seen her record: disproportionately harsh sentences for black and minority defendants, dismissals of legitimate appeals, and courtroom behavior that reeked of superiority. What the files didn't show was the venom in her voice, the mocking smirks, and the way she used her bench as a throne to elevate herself by tearing others down. That morning, Marcus had taken the unusual step of posing as a defendant, blending into the system to experience firsthand what countless others endured. He was dressed in plain clothes, stripped of his badge and authority, standing where too many men who looked like him had stood before. He didn't flinch when she glared at him. He didn't react when she made sly comments about his background. To him, every insult was evidence, every sneer a piece of the puzzle. But to the crowd in the courtroom, he was just another black man being humiliated by a figure of untouchable authority. Little did they know, Marcus was there not just to listen, but to act, and Judge Mercer was about to make the biggest mistake of her career. The proceedings began with a case review that should have been simple. Marcus's role was carefully crafted by his agency. A supposed traffic violation escalated into disorderly conduct, nothing that warranted the fury Judge Mercer unleashed. She leaned back in her chair, glaring down as if Marcus's very existence was offensive. "Another one who thinks the rules don't apply," she muttered loudly enough for the audience to hear. "You people never learn." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Some stared at her in shock, others chuckled nervously, but no one dared to intervene. Marcus kept his composure. His mission was clear: let her reveal herself. Judge Mercer flipped through the fabricated file, smirking. Late payments, a history of disrespect for authority, disorderly conduct. What a surprise. "I bet your mother is so proud." Her voice dripped with sarcasm, every word designed to wound. The humiliation grew sharper. She mocked his posture, his education, even the way he addressed her as "Your Honor." To her, he wasn't a man with dignity, just a target to showcase her dominance. The spectators whispered among themselves. Some shook their heads in disapproval, but most avoided eye contact, unwilling to risk the wrath of a woman who controlled their fate with a stroke of her pen. 7 minutes passed like an eternity. In that time, Marcus documented every slur, every discriminatory remark, and every abuse of power. His calm, steady silence only fueled her rage. To Judge Mercer, silence meant submission. To Marcus, silence meant victory. Finally, she slammed the gavel, her voice echoing. "Men like you are a disgrace to this courtroom. You don't deserve respect, and you certainly don't deserve leniency. You're nothing but trouble, and it's my job to make sure people like you stay in line." The courtroom froze. Marcus lifted his head, meeting her eyes for the first time. Behind his calm gaze, something shifted. Authority, strength, and the weight of justice. And Judge Mercer had no idea her empire of cruelty was seconds from collapsing. The silence after her tirade was broken not by Marcus, but by the creak of the courtroom doors. 2 uniformed federal officers entered, their presence immediate and commanding. The room stirred, whispers rising as they walked directly toward the bench. Judge Mercer frowned, clearly annoyed at the interruption. "What is the meaning of this?" she snapped, still basking in her false authority. Marcus finally spoke, his voice calm but powerful. "Your Honor, or should I say, Caroline Mercer, You're under investigation for judicial misconduct, racial discrimination, and corruption. The judge's face drained of color. She looked from Marcus to the officers, confusion twisting into panic. What nonsense is this? He's just a defendant. Marcus reached into his pocket, slowly pulling out his badge. The golden emblem gleamed under the courtroom lights. Gasps erupted from every corner. Marcus Hayes, he announced firmly, federal investigator. You've just provided us with all the evidence we need. The officers moved swiftly, approaching the bench. Judge Mercer stumbled backward, shaking her head. This is outrageous. I'm the law here. But her protests were drowned out by the sound of handcuffs clicking shut around her wrists. The very chains she had so carelessly ordered for others now bound her own hands. The spectators watched in stunned silence. The same people who had witnessed her cruelty now saw justice served in its rawest form. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stood tall, embodying the dignity she had tried so hard to strip from him. For once, the gavel didn't strike. Instead, the clang of steel cuffs echoed louder than any judgment she had ever delivered. As Judge Mercer was escorted out of her own courtroom, the irony weighed heavy in the air. The woman who had mocked others, who had built her authority on the humiliation of those she deemed beneath her, now walked the same path of shame. Her robe no longer symbolized justice. It symbolized hypocrisy. Marcus stood quietly, his mission complete. He hadn't needed to argue, shout, or defend himself. By letting her expose her own prejudice, he gave the world undeniable proof of her corruption. The spectators began to murmur, their voices shifting from fear to awe. Some nodded at Marcus with respect. Others wiped tears from their eyes. They had just witnessed something few believed possible. A powerful judge held accountable in real time. Marcus reflected on the moment as he left the courtroom. This wasn't just about one judge. It was about every silent victim who had walked into that room with hope, only to leave with despair. It was about dismantling a system where prejudice masqueraded as justice. Outside, cameras flashed as reporters swarmed, desperate for details. Marcus offered only one statement. Justice is not a weapon to humiliate the powerless. It's a responsibility to protect them. And today, that responsibility was fulfilled. The image of Judge Mercer being led away in handcuffs became a symbol, a reminder that no one is above accountability. And as viewers of this story, one question lingers. How many others still sit on benches across the world, unchecked and unchallenged, wielding power they don't deserve? Justice isn't just about punishing the guilty. It's about making sure that power is never abused, no matter who holds the gavel.